이기 남으시 되고 서베 남으시 되고 암쪽 Here we go.
Tumbo Junde de Shabon Rajomba Yanda Barazo
Page 2.
Ribada Shazu Dembara Devar Shaba Jide Jamba Jevu Du Kalo Juba Lana Meba Hadam Enam Jedamba Sanje Jumdende Pejawa Shaja Tubala Chada Shudu Gazu Udumba Junde de Shavan Rajomba Yanda Barazobe Sangye Ribada Shazu Dembara Devar Bo Didi Kyanva Palo Gyuba Lana Meba Lada Menage Dumba Sange Jonde Bejawa Shaga Dubala Shatelo Chodo Jatu Che O Dumbo Jonde De Shin Cheba Rajomba Yanda Bo Zobe Sange Ribada Shazu Dema Dewar Sheba Chidin Jemba Jivu Duve Kalo Juba Lana Meba Lana Minam Jumba Sangi Jumdin De Begewa Shagya Tubala Chadu Shudu Jazu Jevo Kande Gani Dowo Chetanze Sajen Dela Gomba Dumburne Ngane Jidin Dena Choje Song Eze Jewa Gyola Chazalo Nanda Puma Chodu Susang Wa Yeshi Gyasu Segi Rumbura Chava Jide Zuna Lame Wa Gombo Chuni Gyola Chaz Sencho Demo Teme Dawe Sendo Chava Gyola Chazalo Chuna Sipa Sumaji Nyame Chiji Gyola Chazalo Gombo Tuji Chedemba Tamji Jebe Demba Sona Yede Gyazo Je Deji Chela Chazalo Tabe Deja Tewa Gyuru Gewe Nyezon Le Chidu Dendang Chugirva Shigir Gyola Chazalo Drone Drove Layate Laba Lala Prate Shige Damba Yudende Gidu Layan Chazo Deba Jiyam Mejaji Gewa Pumsum Sobar Rangi Sene Yonzu Du Tene Sangi Tembaye Kamarari Marmeda Gyuma Seba Churda Melan Lokan Jindavu Duji Chena Dedarda Sanandi Tamji Sibayi Goban Tone Kyangim Radu Nada Nada Shive Lapchule Sive Sole Krova Truvara
To the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When the supreme among humans, you are born on this earth, He paced out 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise then I prostrate. With pure bodies, form supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, Lord, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, face like the spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. Your immaculate 3 worlds are not. Incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the Founder having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you, the one God of thusness, I prostrate. The purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtue which frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality, to that dharma which pacifies, I prostrate. Those who are liberated and who also show the path of liberation, the holy field qualified with realization, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you, the sublime community intending virtue, I prostrate. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions. Perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all-seeing, subdue the foe of faults, and be delivered from samsaras, perturbed by waves of aging, sickness, and death. Page 5.
Kunjo sumla cha zalo digi dagi toba duji na chonde de yabu ga jago bumbo re longe longe kindu jembo dan janju sende kindu jembo dan taba chibu chude di se chonde de samo na wa she jawe chuji na range tinge zela nyoboro shusaya di se janju semba semba shembo baba chere se wanju shera ge paru de chimba sama cheba nila nambar tashin umbo ngabo de da la ya ra ge tomba nambar tao tene sangye gi tu sedan demba shari anju samba samba chimbo baba chere se wanju la de ge che meso rigi pu Kala la shera ge paru de chimba samo cheba cheba deba de shidar la barcha tege je me badam janju semba semba jimbo baba chire de wanchu ki sedan demba share da de bula tege je me so share bu reje bu mo kala la shera je paru de chimba samo cheba cheba deba de didar nambar tawa chade bumbo ngabo de dalaya rashinje tombar nambar yadaba jesu tau su tombao tomba ni su so dole tomba ni shema yin tomba ni le jang su shema yin Deshin du sorwa dang du shi dang du ji dang nambar sheba na tombao shari bu de da chu dang je tomba ni de tsini meba ma je ba ma ga ba tima meba tima dang tewa tewa meba gangwa meba shari bu de da wen na tomba ni la su me sorwa me du shi me du ji Nambara sheba me me nawa me name jeme lume yime zume rame rime rome rejame chume lo mije kame ba yije kame yije nambara shebe kanji bado yame do mariba me mariba seba me kashi sebe bado yame do Tejendo dunge wadang kunjung wadang Kubada lame yishime toba me mato bayan medo sharibu Edawana janju semba nan toba mebe chir Sheragi barudu chimba Teje nede semla triba meji traba mede Chinji lole shindu Nyangele debe tara chindu Dusondu nambar shubar sangye tamji Shiraje barudu chimba la tene lana meba yanda barazobe Mubarazoba san gezo te dawena Shirage barudu chimbe nga Riba chimbe nga lana mebe nga Minyambada nyambe nga Dungwe tanje radu shivar shibe nga Mizubena
Dimbar
Dimbar
Shivar
Sheba
Jade
Jade
Shiragi
Shiragi
Parudu
Parudu
Chimbe
Chimbe
Mame
Mame
Batayanda Gade 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 Para Sangade Buddhizo Sharibu Janju Zambo Zambo Jimbo Deda Shiragi Parudu Chimbo Samola Parajao Tene Jomde Dingin Dele Shende Janju Zambo Zambo Jimbo Pava Jene Wanju Lego Shijawa Jene Lego Rigi Bu Dede Shino Dede Shinde Jidara Kyugi Temba Shindu Shiragi Barudu Jimbo Samola Shibarajade Deji Shabanam Gyan Jesu Yiramo Jomden Degi Degi Dika Sene Sedan Demba Shari Gadi Buddha Janju Semba Semba Jimbo Baba Jere Zewan Juda Tamze Dan Dembe Kore Deda Dan Adam Nida Amayindan Visar Shive Jiden Yirande Jomden Degi Sumba Lamon Baratu. Page 11. Thus I have heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajgriha on Vulture's Peak, together with a great assembly of monks and Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was totally absorbed in the concentration that examines all phenomena, called profound illumination. And at the same time, the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, was engaged in the profound practice of the wisdom gone beyond, analyzing the five aggregates by nature and things. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra spoke to the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, how should those of good family learn who wish to follow the profound practice of the wisdom gone beyond? Thus he spoke, and the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, replied to the Venerable Shariputra, saying, O Shariputra, whatever son or daughter of good family wishes to follow the profound practice of the wisdom gone beyond, should look at it like this, analyzing the five aggregates by nature empty. Form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, recognition, karmic formations, and consciousness are all empty. Therefore, Shariputra, all phenomena are empty without characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are neither impure nor free from impurity. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no recognition, no karmic formations, no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind. There are no spheres of the eye, no spheres of the mind. There are none of these all the way up to the sphere of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance, nor is there destruction of ignorance. There are none of these all the way up to, there is no old age and death, nor is there destruction of old age and death. Thus there is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no cessation of suffering, and no path. There is no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there is no attainment, all bodhisattvas hold the wisdom gone beyond. And because there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear. Passing utterly beyond falsity, they reach beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times, by relying on the wisdom gone beyond, fully and clearly awakened to unsurpassed, most perfect and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the wisdom gone beyond, the mantra of great insight, the unequaled and unsurpassed mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering, should be known as the truth, where there is no deception. The mantra of the wisdom gone beyond is proclaimed. Tayanta Gandhi Gandhi Paragati Parasamgati Bundiso. O Shariputra, this is how a Bodhisattva Mahasattva should learn the profound wisdom gone beyond. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration and praised the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, very good, O son of good family. It is exactly like that. The profound wisdom gone beyond should be practiced exactly as you have said, and then the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Shariputra, the noble Avalokiteshvara, that gathering in the world with its gods, men, anti-gods, and spirits, their hearts full of joy, praise the words of the Blessed One. So ends the noble discourse on the essence of wisdom gone beyond.
나마도 그래. 나 보고래. 아니, 그러니까 뭐 부바치 배치 나네. 내가 자세 잠들 생각. 아니 자세 전부 쉬워라 제베 준죽 롭센데 아니 롭데도 준죽 전부 이 송을 해서
We now, here on Thursday, turn our attention to the Mahayana Dharma. In the Mahayana Dharma, there is this particular text, the way of the Bodhisattva, composed by an heir to the Buddha, Shantideva himself, and this is our text tonight.
뭐다 되게 인도 양아도 대바침도 최생다 대바침도 최생인데 아니 다음 수주보다 최스 지당 아주 최장 최켈렘바다 말렘바신 개발지기어 다 최켈렘바 있나 양 아니 최켈렌다리 망보 다 디나는 아주 남배 최도 이마이나 아니 디 다 랑기 켈랭이 차네 디바 침보다 디바 중호신 최를 많이 시에서
Then in this Mahayana Dharma, the Mahayana Dharma of this particular text, the way of the Bodhisattva, when we consider spiritual practices generally, religions generally, they begin with an acceptance of the premises of the spiritual practice or rejection of them. This is one important difference. Among those who accept the premise of a spiritual practice, then there are various kinds of spiritual practice. From the standpoint of the Buddhist has, in terms of view, an important consideration from whence comes a differentiation into two forms, that of the foundation vehicle and that of the Mahayana vehicle.
티바 침보다 티바 중국은 다 최제 고 티바 침보 최 임바다 티바 중국 최 임바 아니 개발적으로 간에 연구를 했으나봐이나 나랑 삼로단다 꿀릉고 번에 개발 차를 해서 꿀릉고 돈에 아니 아니 지부 대화다 되게 동네다 지도 삼바 삼로 땅아이나 티바 중국 최로 차그래 아니 랑이 지고 삼로마다 마싱 심제 담지기 동에다 제와 대화다 대버 이제 삼로 꿀릉 돈 땅아이나 아니 다 티바 치고생 차기 요래서
This difference then between the foundation vehicle and the Mahayana vehicle is the important difference here, and it emerges based upon a consideration of the intention underlying the practice and the thought process involved in the practice. For those who are self-interested and whose investment is in securing personal contentment and finding relief from personal pains and sorrows, this informs the foundation vehicle. Less incapacity than the Mahayana vehicle, which is a divestment from self-interest, mere self-interest, and an investment in the plight of sentient beings generally who share in common happiness as well as pain. The wish to endow them with happiness and to part them from their pains is the refined intention of the Mahayana Dharma.
내가 가리 고추고 유바이네 땅아도 단다 최년에 셰 단다 망아도 제대로서 아니다 최시년 지기요 제가 최시바다 년바디 가리치도 시기요 가리치도 년기요 아무kulung도 제바체 kulung치는 랑기 대두를 저와 쳐보자 랑기 대두 지고 삼로 땅게도나 언체되다 디바 중원을 차버래 다티 랑기 디보게 최년시 제바 대양 아니 즉 시행기 대도 시행기 대화 루바다 동에 세베치도 삼로 땅아이나 아니 고티 받침도 주었어 나한테 대신 bar 잘보라 빼디나 아무가라도 최니시 집어들라 빼 잘는 신달 파트나 신 삼로 땅으로 해서
Here then is the refined intention. And whatever the activity, in particular tonight, it is the activity of gathering together as a class and providing instruction in the Dharma and listening to the Dharma. That's what we have gathered here to do, to exchange in listening and instruction in the Dharma. And this follows from an intention. When the intention begins with self-interest, so that one alone parts themselves from pains and finds contentment, and one's scope is is their own well-being, this would make of the activity of listening and instruction in the Dharma of the foundation vehicle of lesser scope. But to listen in another way that is invested in the common welfare of all sentient beings in an endeavor to part them from their pains and to find for them contentment, when this is what informs this activity of listening to the Dharma and providing instruction in the Dharma, then this activity becomes the Mahayana Dharma. And just as the Mahayana Dharma is made in this way, following this refined intention, it informs any activity. This is an example, the exchange in a Dharma class.
근데 이들 당만주 가르쳐버려 했어도 당만주 되고 전부 취지게 취 가르치게 했어. 저어디 직세 아니 취지고 가르해서도 다 취지고야 돼. 아니 가르치는 취 장고를 취 배념에 가르치는 지고를 해서 저어디 내시요. 이들 좀 당만주기 당만주 상말로 다다 시에는 이제 되고 전부도 충무수도 되고 충무수도 되어 가자다 대화 춘주 켈레바 그거 친구수도 때문에 대화 친구 켈레바 그 동해 탐지 바세 투니 랑다 생기 동해 탐지 세투바게 남라라바이자 이거 친구들 라바레 랑기 동해 지부 세투 대화 지부 투투야 남라라바이자 이거 친구 이게 첼레 라바스 다들 대신 냠내 적으로 해서
What follows then is a consideration of what one would do then in their Dharma practice and the purpose of the Dharma practice. Why train at all? Why practice at all in the Dharma? As I mentioned, the commitment is to well-being generally of all sentient life, where instead of this commitment, the investment is in one's own personal well-being. This informs the Dharma of the foundation vehicle. The Dharma of the great vehicle, the Mahayana, is to invest oneself in the well-being of all sentient beings, to dispel the sufferings of all sentient beings. And when this is the objective, then the thorough removal of all pain yields great contentment known to many. This is the great reward of the Mahayana Dharma. To train in this is the Mahayana Dharma.
세상 사람들이 대화다 동행생이죠. 대화다 동행생이디 같이 나눠로 subject로 치다 망보여. 이나 양 단단하도 최시를 잡아 세디기 대화 세침의 대화 세디기 동에 세침의 동에서 되게 제발이 어려져.
We ourselves, with our pain and with our contentment, when we reflect on our pain and our contentment, that pain and that pleasure may be considered in many ways, but especially in the context of the Dharma. The contentment known in this life and the contentment known in subsequent lives, as well as the pain known in this life and the pain known in subsequent lives.
딱한다고 대화 관계 차례스나 최제세야 되게 최제하게 균생이 가르친 때들 균생 최 가르친 적으로 해서 지워되기 내한테로 다 최 가르치고 해서 다 먼저 세침하게 동해 되게 세야다 대화 되게 두야가 더 달라 다 최대 지고하게 균생 nen가가 어디나 열해서
What is the connection then? The connection is to the purpose, the reason of the Buddha Dharma, why one trains in it at all. One trains in it as one does in sight of securing contentment in subsequent lives, and in order to alleviate pain in subsequent lives. This is the purpose of the Dharma.
말아서 draw retreat 동해 내 동해의 대화가 토다 동해의 대화 릭 미드라 요래 이 예배는 딱 맞죠 말아서 하는 밀와 밀라 안돼 밀이 되기 전에 맞죠 동해 가르치는 깨가 나지게 동해 미입에서는 깨외 동해 개외 동에 나외 동에 치외 동에 미비선의 동에 조 제가 나지 동에 시리얼에 손었어.
We are six realms beings. There are six realms of beings, and each has their particular lot of contentment, of pain and pleasure. And there are many kinds of varieties of pain and pleasure for the six realms beings. We ourselves are human beings, and human beings know the pain of birth, aging, sickness, and death. These are the principal forms of pain known to human beings. These especially birth, the pain of birth, of aging, of sickness, and death.
어떠시? 당 알아도 당당 알아도 밀루티 때디 다들 밀루티라 담로 따는 알아도 지도 나라 이바이나 당아도 동에 시나네 동에 최쇼 가르치기라잖아. 다 시외 동에 치줘야 돼. 동에 최쇼 이네 나가 이네 가 택계외 동에 알아도 지도부터 당 채바이나 동에 두스름 받는 데 지원 그래서
With the biological basis of a human body, if we consider it, then consider it in the ordinary sense in our society too, we know that the worst form that pain takes is the pain at the time of death. The imminent departure, that is our death, is the greatest pain to us. And it is followed by the pains of illness and by aging and by birth.
당아도 최 예시제 최고 냐면 제바라 때네 아니 다양 가진 중에 아주 지도 동에 지단 전부 대가라는 대기를 위해서나 이 말에 아주 동에 삼로 야고 땅나 계획 동에도 독쇼 계획 동에도 고축네 아니 가외 동에 나외 동에 치외 동에 강가 고축을 고축을 다 고축이 요바인다 다 계획 동에도 박방샤나 아니 나외 동에 가외 치외 동에 강가 방투을 계획 동에도 마바나 어떻게 강가 용글 세상다 계획 동에도 너무 방거 내가 사실 잘 알아서
Then when we listen to the Dharma, provide instruction in the Dharma, and undertake a practice in the Dharma, then do our concerns resemble then exactly those of society at large, where the notion is that the pain of death is the greatest pain of all? No, it does not follow the same way. In the case of one undertaking their practice, they recognize that birth is the greatest pain of all. Birth is the greatest pain of all because it precipitates all the other forms of pain that follow. Following birth, one ages, grows ill, and dies. Should one wish to abandon death, avoid the pain of death, first one must avoid the pain of birth and all that it precipitates in aging, sickness, and death. If one is able to then abandon, divest from birth, then the other pains too are divested from that.
다 이제 인도 당아도 최체 생일이 세딜라 저 유르 세 치마다 저 배침부 열에 송어서
Now, the Dharma practice has a small, slight connection to concerns in this life, and the greatest connection to concerns in subsequent lives.
세딜이야 내가 토게 내가 요 말을 내가 토게 요 말을스나 이때서 열에 내가 자자 주니슈 요식이 그나 수수가 내 나서 시와 제야다 시듀 강에 많이 왔다 남자 많이 왔다 될 팽기를 팽바 열에 이나양 저거 조 그미유디 이 말에 세치마 디니파 깨와 약골래야 보랍주나 깨와 고는 먹어야 이게 맨나야 깨와 레버이나 깨와 약골래야 미 녀송도 맞이야 대들을 깨야 어떻게 이해가 맞춰 제거될 연구를 해서
Though, is there no pleasure, no happiness to be found in the present life? Certainly there are pleasures in the present life. Some 10%, maybe some 20% of our pleasures are those known in the present life. For instance, in this life, less preoccupation with our physical pains, and so less pain. Less anxiety at the time of death, and so then less pain at that time. There is then some benefit here, but the important contribution to well-being is in well-being in subsequent lives. Best of all is through one's Dharma practice to have made unnecessary the reincarnation at all again in a subsequent life. But if this isn't yet achieved, at least to have some ability to determine one's fortunes in subsequent lives, to avoid a fall into a hell realm, to secure a fortunate rebirth. These follow from a Dharma practice.
안도 디니파 소소 삼로다 야체를 땅투나 세디기 되월라나 진지유리 니뉴리 세침에 되어서는 치보래 망보래 뒤규를 뭐가지래 어디서 인디 다침에 되어도 되어 친주다 치보 지도 치보돼요 하비가 다시 제고로 와 이제는 인디 침에 되어도 개체 어쩌고 그래서
Now, if we just broaden our outlook so that we recognize that the pleasures in this life compared to the pleasures in all subsequent lives are comparatively trivial, then we know to invest in the greater satisfaction of all the contentment in subsequent lives.
세디기 되어서는 아주 유르고 있는 메시지 로자스직 다른 로자스직 되어래 세침에 되어는 로 붐붐 밀렌데 되게 로기 되어 그 시기였잖아. 근데 뒤쪽에 찬이네 매치라케바 요래서
In this life, the pleasures we would know for at most 100 years or so, at very most. But pleasures and contentment in lives to come span many hundreds of thousands of years and many millions of years. So from the standpoint of their duration, that contentment in subsequent lives is much greater.
야, 다들 내가 좀 쇼를 라비아가 준주고 나눴다. 아주 냠내고 오늘 제거해야 돼. 아주 친주고 냠내. 왜 뭐시다 친주고 냠내지 제거해야 돼. 다들 내가 친주고 냠내 되고도 랑게 제투바. 랑게 랍투바 되게 제발라 한번 때라. 해봐도 삼어 고바. 근데 제거해야 돼. 다른 내가 랍투야게 누가 용해야게. 아니 교육 원도 아니 어게 친구가 냠내는 랍투야지도 템바다 시신 아니 봐요 디주 땡투고 그거다 디주 땡야 치돌라 아니 나도 제주고 이거 바르바숨 근데 다 근데 봐요다 시에 근데 땡투야 장주쌤 줄라 근데 땡투버 쳐발라 장주쌤 장보랑이 줄라 장주쌤라 라비야 좀바다 트로고 와 요 근데 치돌라 좀바다 장주쌤 줄라 깨바다 깨라 트로와 요아 치돌라 아니 요 당보 숨시 아니 요 주체네 아니 또 숨거래서
And then we train in the way of the Bodhisattva as the practice here and now, the real practice with all that it entails, especially the practice of the 6 paramitas and the 4 means of gathering disciples. These especially, the 6 paramitas and the 4 means for gathering disciples, we must undertake ourselves. And in order to do this, we must become informed as to what they are, and we do this through our learning and through contemplation and meditation. This is absolutely necessary. And then so that we do have a capability, a power, an ability to engage in these, we must accumulate the causes for this. We must have the basis for training in this way. That basis is made up of our mindfulness, our vigilant introspection, our conscientiousness. And so that we become informed regarding these and understand these, the way of the Bodhisattva presents them to us in the 3 middle chapters. But for us to ever be invested in these, mindfulness, vigilant introspection, conscientiousness, we must have first that enthusiasm and aspiration to bodhicitta, the mind of awakening. And so to develop this enthusiasm and aspiration to the mind of awakening, the first 3 chapters of the way of the Bodhisattva, and in this way, 10-chapter texts emerge.
나 시사가 참네 걸레 요래서나 아니 지당 가서다 장주 선배기 냠네 지도 네 수배기 냠네 제디 다 장주 선배기 냠네 나네 또 치슈지 자기 요 제단다 수배 랑기 녀바라 아무튼 녀바징이라 아니 수바 고매하게 냠네 지다 장주 선배기 냠네 때 시기 요 제단 디디도 다 알아서 녀배기 녀녀니 되라 아니 치 말한 비지된 연락 체나 말한 저 공안을 가기 민도 공안 많이 갑자기 공에 잘했어야 돼. 자디 뭐스면 치 아니 대마이 봐 말한 저 셈난게 유모도 줄어야 자기 명단에 고 자기 뭔지 체네 아니 고 유모들어야 야 갑자기 자고야 어떤 데서 뭐니 빼다 되는 체는 시기 어려서
Then in this 10 chapter text, The Way of the Bodhisattva, in our exchange of the Dharma, in listening and instructions, where have we arrived? We've arrived at this section having to do with the mighty practice of the Bodhisattva, their tolerant forbearance, as a most critical practice of the Bodhisattvas. When another hurts one tolerates with forbearance the harm done to one. This, the text advises. In the world where we have notions of others who dislike us, who intend to harm us, we name these our enemies, our adversaries. There's one classification of adversary. Then another two, the mental afflictions themselves, afflicted minds themselves as enemy. Identifying these two notions of who are adversaries and then examining this is where we have arrived.
Oh, yeah, 당가라도 지dengi 가로 직수수 마가서 드라싱이 콜로 서버 공부이나 랑 개첨부 여봐. 아니 콜로 그봐 양 지dengi 가라도 드라싱이 뒤딱과 담아를 따고 뒤직을 팬도 뒤직을 뇌지 근데 간다 수술로 뇌지에 뒤지제 요래 팬도 뒤지제 요래 아니 팔 들음 제가 있는 아주들이랑 요아진이랑 팬도 봐. 네. 하장그랑 소교배다. 아니 배랑 팬도 전부 지하게. 어디되게 나 뒤즈 유배 온게 되게 요래. 아니 냠내 랑게 쇠배 냠내 제발라 때네. 아니 랑게 유무 시야다. 아니 랑게 또고 kon도 패야 되게 망고 요래스. 다 유무 그 자승에들라 아니 되게 요래나. 다티 요 말에서 어디지 좀 요래스.
Then those others who we think dislike us, intend to harm us, do harm us, and when they do harm us, the practice of tolerating that harm, forbearance toward those who do us harm, this is an all-important practice in our world in a manner of the Bodhisattva, who recognizes that the notion of a adversary is a changing one. At one time, this other party will perhaps harm one. At yet another time, they might assist one. There's a time always for both. And especially when an attempt is made to harmonize, to find commonality with the adversary, then change occurs. Patient forbearance then produces realizations and reduces afflicted minds and afflictions. But when the mental afflictions themselves, afflicted minds themselves are tolerated, is this ever constructive at all? And no, the answer is it is never constructive at all to tolerate afflicted minds.
오예, 근데 이제 좀 어떤 이모 생애들아 가두이네 서버 거면 요 말콜 보체네 셈 보체네 아니 코데데 간다 콜 그 야구 쳐야다 아니 지 콜 투 네버 젠다 파 서버 거나 팽기를 했으나 가야 팽기 말했어 어떻게 마베야 지도라 가진 어쩌다 참 가진 뭐만 두다 보면 시해야 되나 전주고 지대로 튜버를 땐제나 탐지 팬다 대제봐 이모남이 땐제나 치즈 도면 내가 제스 가진 경험은 뜻이
Then one ought never to tolerate, to placate afflicted minds, because there will never be any moment at all when by tolerating them, they later turn around and provide some assistance or benefit to one ever, never at all. To emphasize this, verse 33 on page 58, all other foes that I appease and wait upon will show me favors, give me every aid. But should I serve my dark defiled emotions, they will only harm me, draw me down to grief.
어디시 다들 가서 들어오면 나는 시에서는 다 뜻이 미세 잠고지 간다다 간다다 수수고 셈나라 여조기 다다 니모드죠 아니 간데스 되었나 랑기 셈저로디 마조기 니모드죠 컴베나 되니 드로보로지 아주 셈디 대사기 컴바기 드롱간로지 어디나 돼요 세단다 거기 셈나 되니 전부 니모드도 셈다 수 니모신 샤바이나 아니 건조기 니모드도 가도 가두이나 너바지 동해때야 뭐 지금 말해 텔레 셈나 니모드게 당분이 봐 당분이 용마죠 용나야 파까 깨듯이 너바지 까토나 아니 그 수준으로 동해 용 거야 근데 요 말에 세상 대인이 아니 셈나 니모드 니모마지가 니모드 가두이나 봐 까토 점투가 지고래서 지금 더 나들에서 뭐지
This verse was the focus last week. We don't need to provide any new explanation to the verse here. Yeah. The point to make is that the mind is like the dormitory where afflicted minds reside. This mind, our mind, is host to, is the residence of afflicted minds. And if they are allowed to remain, then all they ever do is do violence. And so then the objective would be to prevent them from ever taking up residency in the mind, and if they have already, to turn them out. So to turn them out and to stop them cold so that they do not enter again, this is the objective.
Oh yes, that is that you move to get the seminar about coast. 거기 강변나라 들어가는 너버치 미주 강변나 대나 맞던거로 맞던바지 사실은 그 너버치로 되나시 니모드들 한게 셈나라도 샤샤 그 준너버치네 파스보 겁네 대버지나 아니 가르치기래스 그래서 맞다 딜라 저니레스 이게 수구 샤샤나 랑게 셈나 누구래 랑게 룰레 누구래스 니체 다 당보 셈나 너버들라 아니 진중국 직할 자와 가르된 것은 이 단들이 와도도 대다 유린 윤자 라줄바 네버 서로 패배 규칙보 다기 잉런 네버 네잖아 하는 잉런 네버 네잖아 코와 지금의 가와 칼라 유르스 월 제단다 셈은 네버 쿵 빼시기 요래서는
Afflicted minds have taken up residence in the mind as though it were a dormitory for them, a residence for them. These mental afflictions that are violent, like violent bad actors, in a place, if they are allowed to remain in that place, then all they do is do violence. And so one oughtn't tolerate them at all. If one does tolerate them, what follows? Mental pain and physical pain. The verse indicates how it is that mental pain follows in verse 34. If thus my ancient and unceasing foes, the wellspring only of my growing pain, can lodge so safe within my heart, how can I live so blithe and fearless in this wheel of life?
Oh yeah, that in a sick 당보되게 대다의 유린 윤차 라줄바스 대다라서 다 간도 셈나 칸데스뉴기요 네버 제버레스 나스 아니 그 통마메 받은 아주 셈 뭐마 통마메 개와 망부르인라 셈다 냠도 용네 아주 셈나 고 제네 아주라다 동해 망부 용쭉 차르 배 제버네 제바 망부 동해 용 차르 단다이네야 그 다대배 아주 개가 나지게 동해 제 신발에 다 단대 맞던 맞에 샤바이나 그 윤차바지 두바 윤 대가나 내주바이나 뭐발라양 거기다 동해 무튜니 양주야 임바디 다 진예의 술에 근데 동행 양준이 드라데 드라줄 봐서도 근데 가지고 동행 전이 드라줄 봐 이모 봐서 어디지 숨어.
Then to explicate the verse, if thus my ancient and unceasing foes, if thus indicating this way, the manner in which afflicted minds do violence are harmful. This is indicated by thus, my ancient and unceasing foes, ancient and unceasing. Ancient as emerging from beginningless time and being involved in innumerable, countless rebirths over all of this time, involved in conceptual thought. They have inflicted pain. This they've done countless times already. And presently, this pain inflicted by afflicted minds continues in the obligatory birth, aging, sickness, and death that their presence precipitates for us. Now then, the wellspring, these mental afflictions are only of my growing pain. If they are allowed to lodge so safe within my heart, how can I live so blithe and fearless in this wheel of life?
뭐야, 제대 이리 다 드라줄 봐 되기 아니 가르치겠어 너베 초 안도로 너버 셈나를 마지버 셈는 딱배 동해제야 그 무튼이 류 제부점네 동해 용대 류 단다 여버있는 동해배 망고 셈만 안다 지다 망고 용고야 근데 동해 망고 초버도 아니 막 용으로 마다 야 패워쳐야지 규칙부디 아니 수레스나 유모데레스 니모만도 신방도 지dengi 나랑서 공에 가기면 공알 넣어봐지 그래. 오 건중알 넣어봐지 그래. 어디에 세야기 아니 코스 두고 두사기 자 나랑도 두균 지dengi 드라스야 두족이 먼저 때 동에 표를 지키려서 시도고 말했어. 이 표를 지금 규칙부터 유모 단진다 안진이 이게 손으로. 이니버디 되죠.
If thus my ancient and unceasing foes, these ancient and unceasing foes, named foes here, are the afflicted minds. The wellspring only of my growing pain. Wellspring as the source, the one and only cause of the various pains. These are the pains that are physical pains. They're physical pains then amplified again by the anxiety that they cause. This anxiety, all of the pain, these are all caused by the only cause, afflicted minds. And afflicted minds that are likened to foes, afflicted minds increase the pain and suffering we experience. Ordinary adversaries in the world haven't got this sort of influence that they can inevitably and incessantly increase the pain that we face. This alone, afflicted minds creates for us by the mentality to grasp at the ostensible self and to cherish the self. These two cause of all mental affliction.
뭐야, 근데 이러면 근데 유모니부 테스 다기 닝스도 가도 돼. 가도 수부 닝스한테 말해. 닝스다 셈나 그러면 네버지 내잖아. 셈나고 내장도 전에 좀 대상 마마도 뭐지 샤바였나? 아니 당아도 코알라 그런 게 내세기 아니 딱 아주 코아스네다 강바스네 되나라 아니 지구메바 배생감자메바 배 기부치네 대학 저와자 요르스나 저와자 요마레스 저와자 요마르 배는 답배로이나 배는 아주 수수 이 라고나 매트 아주 매요 매코랑 게다 사실 시거와 메디코랑 사실 시베라시레 라고나 멜레스나 메디파 마유나 가다 라고 치기로 와 메디파 육토와 있는 라고 치야 돼요 말로 제가 디나시 이모디 셈나 맞대서나 아니 셈다 대화토에서 요래 그래서 이모디 셈나 단다 못이 내버 있는 아니 대화토에서 요 말했어 어떻게 배드지 지금 시기 요래서
If thus my ancient and unceasing foes, the wellspring only of my growing pain, can lodge so safe within my heart. By heart here, we don't mean the organ of the heart, we mean the mind itself. If the mind itself is allowed to remain residence for afflicted minds, then how can I live so blithe and fearless in this wheel of life? Then allowing the afflicted minds to remain as residents in the mind, is there any hope at all of a life that is free of anxiety? There is no hope for this at all. There is no hope for this at all, and this is illustrated by imagining one has taken into one's hand a burning coal. So long as the burning coal is in one's hand, it will burn as the heat of the coal that it burns, that it will burn one, is its nature, is the nature of heat. And until it is tossed, then that coal in one's hand will burn one. Once it is tossed, then it will no longer burn one. It is no different with afflicted minds. When they are banished from the mind, deposed from the mind, then there is the prospect of contentment. But so long as they remain resident to the mind, there is no hope at all for contentment.
그래서 군이 카가샤나 아니 동에 숨겨 지투로 숨겨 지투로 어디나시 유모당 셈니데 가도 냠도 되버리나 아니 셈라 다음에 대화 토비하게 고급 말했으니 빼자는 숨을 줘.
Then when we were young and learning the way of the Bodhisattva, that is, we were young students and the instructor was teaching the way of the Bodhisattva, they do so illustrating this through the lesson of a wolf in a flock of sheep. So long as the wolf is there with the sheep in the meadow, no respite, no calm, no moment free of anxiety is possible to those sheep, so long as the wolf is among them. It is no different for the mind when the mental afflictions afflict it, so long as afflicted minds are present, there's no possibility for contentment.
Nyumu di sem nal pamadem bachi sha kola thandu pe rawa che subo gom deba yina ani khandi jores na rola sam pe ronga mola cha de ni gi khasa semje ji ani tioro tigi tsela dus tangzi chu na dus chile dawa yina ko rodil cha ne dewa tagi yor de yine kanji tidi gi tsele shan dungen te ro 제가 그 롤러 차는 티 제다와 마시 아주 이모션나 샤네 대화 저잖아 디도지요 스페셜이라서.
And another metaphor illustrating another metaphor for illustration what happens when one does not eject, does not depose afflicted minds from the mind, is a person, a creature who loves sweets, infatuated with sweets, presented with honey on the blade of a knife, and they lick that honey on the blade of the knife carelessly, so consumed by their love for sweetness and honey, they're licking the blade of a knife, and the danger is present in just the same way.
Oh, yang zu de da gegen du de pe de jana ne de shi de yore se da de ta indi ta ni ba de garsna ta sem ne ba ma se lula ne ures lula ne ba che ba ta ju ju ci garsna de wa de o ma de ko we chora sume ne so sus ko che shamar ju ba de da ki ta ni de lo ne cha ba ta wa na 내는 달라 대화 칼라 예스 달 유르네 뭐게 동에가 자고 그래서.
So these are the metaphors used by our teachers. Now, the next verse follows to indicate how it is afflicted minds harm the body. In verse 35 on page 58, and if the jail guards of this prison, of the prisons of samsara, the butchers and tormentors of infernal realms, all lurk within me in the web of craving, what joy can ever be my destiny?
Oh, yeah, that in it, Tambudiki, that the Karsilla, Koetera, Spejardo, Koadi, Zongan, Pejar, Zongana, Zumba Duja, Zongana Lesona, and it Lapa Kambashan Dam, so Damjen, Ramaba Chagrua, or Dinashin Koana Lesana, and the Karchigresna, and he Pagachada Damanashin, later Yumuji Su Damba, the Dam Ramaba Chagres, Best teacher and Sungu response.
And if the jail guards of the prisons of samsara, straightaway samsara is likened metaphorically to a prison. In the worst high security prisons, one enters and is immediately bound, immediately cuffed, hand and foot, and shackled. All freedom is taken away from one. Samsara is likened to a prison. For the moment one enters samsara again, then one is bound and all freedoms are taken from one.
Oh, yeah, that in a shit, Zonganala, and he don't Zunga, Zunga, and it's to Dambache, to Dam, and he Damni Pechin, Shurema, Sugurua, Tenashin, and he Page Koanala, Yeso, near Panaka, some Yawa Pejan, Sundan, Yawa Kevaina, and in Yawaki, lazy, better, Suzu, lady Toby Krubegi, Yevegi, Page, led and you move it. 인속에 아니 라운라서 딱 간지 이 전송하게 또 다음에 탈해야 매가 수요가 나지 레더니 못되기냐 아니 말아도 전송하다 자와 전에 아니 또다 자와게 담바치를 해서 어디까지를 했어.
And if the jail guards of the prisons of samsara, in prisons there are the prison guards, those who cuff you so that they won't lose track of you and monitor you in your unfree state. In samsara, which is likened to a prison, and then here particularly, the butchers and tormentors of infernal realms, the hell realms as one place within samsara, there the butchers and tormentors are those who would be likened to guards in the prisons. That is, the butchers and tormentors are the karma and the kleshas, the karma and the afflicted minds. They are that which keeps one unfree in samsara, likening, here the verse likens karma and the klesha, karma and the afflicted minds to prison guards, butchers and tormentors.
Oh yeah, that's thinking about the Shema Juba. Idani, so Shema Juba, the Danita, and that Page Ananzo, that called the leather Numunigi, Yasoning, Yasun, said Kokanda, Yasonia, that Harbata Tamji Kamada, allocated Shema water. Alitori, Dendro Tobia Layang, and then later Numudi Becard, Toma Juba, and other prayer. Page 예송아 주고 아니 직치는 작다잡 아니 작다잡 아니 집하게 작다 담 대신에 가서 죽고 탈사매고 수요가 나시 아니 내가 나서 바게 딸 내다니 뭐니고 되게 아니 예송이야 같이는 내가 팔아야 마타라 예송은 모든 예송은 된도 때문에 도비야 내가 하루 매주고 되게 아니 내다니 뭐지 지기 어려서
The butchers and tormentors, or the karma and the klesha, karma and mental afflictions. These ensure that one continuously lives unfree in hell states, one hell realm giving way to the next hell realm, giving way to the next hell realm with no respite at all. There's no sense even imagining liberation and omniscient Buddhahood. Leave that aside. But even still, there's hardly any prospect of the good fortune of human or heavenly rebirth in fortunate realms. Instead, by karma and klesha, the prison guards, continuous is the experience of hell realms, one hell realm giving rise to the next hell realm, and the next one remaining bound in steel cuffs, as it were, with no way out at all, no escape at all, there just being one next hell realm to follow the next hell realm, and no good fortune available at all.
예, 대제 인디즈마다 간다랑 게데 식수마데 게데로라 차베 자와나스 내나 달라 대와 갈라 유에스 식수마다 시원이부디 다 간다라기 유기 뉴무디기디 아니 셈다 무투디 자와체니 셈베 나라 마마든 바치니 샤샤와이나 알로 바네 짜네 데데바이나 아니 바게 좀바 자와네 칠로 마타라나지 자와가 좀 담네 대바나시 아니 랑 메송게 내를 탈와 마타르바세 그 담바치 그래 내 송은 내를 대차나 아니 랑라다 대화생데 아니 도베가 라와자와 열에서는 요마르 대화 뇽야 파션 대화 암조그 보야 하고 시다래 제가다 대화 뇽야 고급 요마르 쓰는데 뜻이 제가 그래서
And if the jail guards of the prisons of samsara, the butchers and tormentors of infernal realms all lurk within me in the web of craving, what joy can ever be my destiny? All lurk within me in the web of craving. If in the mind, afflicted minds are not rejected, are not deposed, but allowed to remain, then there's no escape from the infernal realms, from the hell realms. And once one has been born into a hell realm, then the prospect of any contentment is entirely lost. How can I live so blithe? What joy can ever be my destiny?
yeah, that is indeed about that is similar about the Lula Nebaki. And that Nimidi, that neta, you mood that and regi never chabu you mood tea, and Shombe Chidu, subject in the Shombe to lot of Kevastua. The Nimu Tese, the Nimu Tese, and the part of Paya Chidula, Nimu de Pangunata, Shida Kabula, had come to Nimu de Zo, Hazanging around some Guru, Comdi Chesar, some the penny which and the Com Sadusaba, and around the Nimu by Shomer Chavala. Shiragi Kago Zidan Nimu Pangsidi, Shiragi Betat Kale Kago Chik, a little chadi or Sedan you do Zabata, you move the Mabaji Shanani, Karchigoresna, who moved to the round of Tonto, Tadanga Majiba, Bekeka Nazi Dunga Yongoya, Sam Namandra Yongoya, Lula Naza Yongo, the sweet cheversna, you move the chever. You move the similar neighboring around the Kobi Omar, the Kana Shever. 대단한 이모디 봐 점국을 그래서 그 점버대야 아니 지금 항상 점 초조 여러에 좀 내려고 그랬으네 대야 말해서
Turning back.
이제 된신의 되도 지금이 된다 되는 제도 이제 되냐면 된샤로 대다르치시 다기 다디 무슨 두 예버마 좀 대시 다기 쇠미 토 레시 내지 충을 나야 트위겨봐 나제 되남 대마 좀봐 니뭐 미용사 이제 된샤로 스타트 본다.
These two verses then indicate the pain that is mental pain and physical pain inflicted by mental afflictions. And this is an indication of how it is, how they are destructive as they are, their pitfalls, their drawbacks. And then this is followed by verse 36 to inspire one to make the effort to banish afflicted minds. For the continuousness of pain, the long familiarity with afflicted minds makes the afflicted minds difficult to root out. The afflicted mind, mental afflictions, the klesha, are well known to the mind. The mind is very accustomed to their presence, and so it is difficult to eradicate them. It isn't at all easy to eliminate afflicted minds. Nevertheless, if they are allowed to remain, then continuously they inflict the pain of birth, aging, sickness, and death, and physical pains and mental pains, every last one of these pains being caused by the klesha, the mental afflictions. So they must be eradicated. So then, verse 36, I will not leave the fight until, before my eyes, these enemies of mine are all destroyed. For if aroused to fury by the merest slight, incapable of sleep until the scores are settled. didn't 62 drink, what about?
Oh, there's
shloka shi, sum. Jovachik, shloka sum.
Oh, the subject.
All right, I will not leave the fight until before my eyes these enemies of mine are all destroyed.
Oh, subject, that's called.
We'll conclude the way of the Bodhisattva here if we go on in an explanation of all the various forms of pain, then it's exhausting. So we'll conclude here and then turn our attention to the cognitive psychology. Excuse me for 1 minute. So, consider questions that you might have.
Oh, yes. That's the same June, same June that another new more than the country, the shit, I think I same the same June now. The shit, your response.
Then in cognitive psychology, we consider minds and mental factors, primary consciousnesses and the derivative cognitive states. And in this framework too, the review of mental afflictions fall into this framework of minds and mental factors.
Oh, yeah, that's same thing. 거기 조조 샘중스 다 샘스 중 아주 거기 다 간지 다진도 빼셔야나 이모들도 강반한 내 얘기 전부 저거래서 샘디 강바 쳐들어서 다진도 뭐 어디나 신다 단달 삼지고 다 샘디 알아서 유 수수고 땅에 샘 얘기 샘 얘기 쉐바 얘기 로세야다 어디 샘디가 나지 다 샘디 나라야 아니 가리었으나 아니 심중부터 로망부터게 냠도 열었다 심중텔라 심중 개와 열 심중 메개와 열 심중 로마테 자산 열에 손스
So a primary consciousness or a main mind is principled, and it's attended by, or it is accompanied by derivative cognitive states, mental factors. In the metaphor of mental afflictions taking up residence in the mind that is like a hostel or like a dormitory, then you have in those mental afflictions mental factors, derivative cognitive states connected to the primary consciousness. When we think of my mind, my intelligence, my thoughts, one's thoughts, all the thoughts, the variety of thoughts and cognitive states may be virtuous, inclined virtuously, non-virtuously, or they may be non-specified, unspecified regarding virtue, non-virtue.
Oh yeah, do you similar mean kind of yours, no? Same Quran. Do you know that maybe same time do you same style, she style. Mom says that same chelegs and mean this some dog or same six, 이시 이시셔봤어요. 아니 넘버 셔봤어. 어디 젤레기 찬 명다 그랬어. 젤레 간데 명다 그랬으나 배나가서 당가도 들어와 셈 칭이디 아니 나도 레 싸봐. 레 간다 지금 거기 레 고마 싸와다 다다 싸워 뭐 싸워 주어서야기 다레 싸야기 땡체 전에 셈스 명다 그랬어. 지금 다 유도 버잖아. 샘디기 고아니 거기 유도 유제진 유도도 봐시 또 버잖아. 콜라 이스민다. 근데 동이도 이시세도 동만이 또 또야게 샘디가 거기 이시스민다. 한 넘버 셔봤도 아니 샘디기 젤레기 전에 유도도 빼는 유 맞제바. 배 전부 준주 트라바 참모 스르스파스 수수 맞제바 전에 또 버셔봐 인자. 넘버 셔봤어. 어 샘기 젤레기 전에 근데 샘 코랑 찍 이제 샘이 뭐 찍어라. 근데 젤레기 전에 민민다 가죠.
제zanzi number 셔봤디 아니 가리 맞제바? 가리 다 맞제바?
유 맞제바.
맞제바.
라바다 참모.
알아 진짜 아니 카카 이어시바.
어 강가 수수 맞제바 전에 셔봐 인자. 넘버 셔봤어.
Ordinarily, we use some synonyms, mind and wisdom and intelligence, in ways that indicate and emphasize slightly different function within these. When we refer to mind, we refer to where karmas that are accumulated in the past, which are accumulating presently, and will accumulate in the future, where they are accumulated to. Then this for mind. And wisdom is the comprehension of an object of knowledge and understanding. For instance, we speak of the wisdom realizing emptiness. So here then, wisdom to indicate the comprehension or understanding of an object of knowledge. And then the mind that is involved in a discernment between properties and of objects and things, we might refer to in terms of intelligence. So here then these mind and wisdom and intelligence, all synonyms of mind generally.
Oh yeah, 제가 다 쌤 하게 들으랬다. 이스리서부터 쌤다 쌤 중세디 안타 간에 유지원의 개발치기와 말았어. 유지원의 거 개발치기와 말. 유진지원의 개발 쌤다 쌤 중세 가가치기와. 지난 빼제 가지나나 그 쌤 로스네 간에 쌤다 쌤 중간 거 로게 되잖아. 쭉 열때 이내 권익이 나로 개발이 유진지원의 유기 유도당과 유기를 봐 따당 안에 아니 곧 쌤들 심중이 제벌 치고를 해서
지는 아니 숑 가실라 가래.
어서 번나다 쌤 번나 쌤슬라나 심중도 저 쌤코나 장시행으로 쌤주 코나 시행으로 이나야 권이 쌤코나 세계 윤에 코란이기 따로 개벌이 아니 가르치는 연구를 했으나 유 저기 거기 따당 이거 또 직보 이나양 따당 민저 거의 제례 민저 전에 아니 쌤도 쓰고 제거하는 거를
Then in minds and mental factors, primary consciousnesses and derivative cognitive states, here we'll call minds and mental factors. They are to be understood not in terms of the object, the cognized object that a mind cognizes, not the object, but the cognizer itself, from the standpoint of the cognizer itself, the mind cognizing itself. And differences in the process, in the functioning, in the cognitions determines differences in the terminology for presenting minds and mental factors, which are which among mental factors. So in some texts, mental factors will be lumped in and not differentiated very much from primary minds. Primary minds and mental factors will be lumped together as minds generally. But relevant differences are nevertheless present. All our minds, all our cognizers, differences between them are differences in the process or the manner in which the cognition occurs.
미기 넘버 샤바디기 땅어 코랑 젤레데 마순데 조 나티니 바 가르치르스 다 심중디기 라가 치르 심중디기 라가 가르서 심요 그러나 심요스데 아니 아기나 싱에 있는 유지 참 디라과레 참무다야 라과다야 아니 오다 침보르다스 야베미 침보르스다 바 다른 거다 아트 진주모도 믿어왔어 되게 야마 심 파주 요 다니디 다 심중레기 와서
To illustrate this, consider vision and the visual faculty of the eye. When vision, the primary vision perceives its visual object, and vision occurs, then the primary mind and vision itself, that process comes to a close. Then mental factors or derivative cognitive states emerge or involve themselves to accentuate and direct vision. For instance, in the visual field, discriminating certain parts of the visual field as minuscule and directing attention to them, or directing based upon the quality of what is seen in the visual field. Any accentuation to vision is by the involvement of mental factors.
예, 다스님 좋은데 아니 유디 유이도 유배 야 한게 야가 통도다 말이 이걸 차바지 되어지 봐. 소화 되어지 봐. 유이도 뭐야 통도 소화 동에 지고 어디 소화지기도 심중에서 말 통이就是全部 집에서는 내 당고 통스다. 이 다니고만 내 통스다. 다들 들들들에서 그 맞게 버전 템베 유도 레도 아니 심중 챔바스에 주려 제가 심중 그래서 내가 와게다 샘디 와라 다들 유인해 봐서 유배 제가 제벌 수수 주게 보라 아니 심중되게 내가 지금 그래서
And two, in the visual field, when something is found that is desirable, something that one likes, has a fondness for, which causes one pleasure seeing it, or in the case of something that is unpleasant, and when one sees it, one is displeased. This is the responses to vision are mental factor caused responses to vision, or something that is seen before, something that is recalled, something that hasn't been forgotten, and then having not been forgotten can inform one as one engages in their vision, during vision, to say, this is that which I'd seen before. This is that I have seen before. This is the involvement of mindfulness or recollection, the mental factor. These are the recognition and discernment and accentuation that go on in vision by the involvement of mental factors.
예, 진짜 심중이 제일. 나중에 말이네. 나도 그래서 쉐고 가는 뭐 타마시한테 쉐를 그래서 땡이지 쉐로 땡이지 되게 샘 미벌 봐. 제지도 미벌 니메 봐. 미벌 지그랑 봐. 샘 네투바. 제도 아니 수시로 심중 땡이지. 그래서 미벌 네베 가네. 아니 샘 마투베 가네. 아니 샘이 배제바 체네. 아니 다 동반이게 되는데 미다부 되는도 제바 칭이도 아니 쉐랍스. 그래서 심중 땡이지다 쉐랍스.
And further examples are concentration too, as a derivative cognitive state or mental factor. This mental factor places one's attention continuously on a single focal object, so that one is not divided in their attention, but concentrated on a single focal object. And then two, so that there may be an analysis and then a close examination that made possible by concentration. That examination and analysis is by the derivative cognitive state of a state of wisdom, that is examining and analyzing an object so as to discover its impermanence or its emptiness. These are other instances of the involvement of derivative cognitive states, mental factors. And really what we ought to have turned our attention to just now is the derivative cognitive state of wisdom, the mental factor wisdom, which is one of the 5 mental factors with a determinate object. But we've run out of time just now, and so that will have to remain for next week. and we can pick up with our Q&A right now.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
Well, let's begin by hearing the question.
Yeah, yes.
I was watching a teaching by Sarang Rinpoche, the previous Dalai Rinpoche, and he said something interesting about intelligence, that intelligence is not what we think it is, but that intelligence is more of a karmic formation versus being how, quote unquote, smart you are in this life. Can Geshe-la talk a little bit more about that?
그래서 아니 송름지기 승주직 아니 닌디 잠발라 아니 송 후공마디 후공마디게 아니 승주 난디 잠발라 다 고사르직 아니 렌스 중송 데레 아니 송름지기 아니 넘버 쉐바 세리디 맞아 남규영이 아니 고아 당 자기 말해 라 다 넘버 쉐바 세리디 레기 왕기 야면 뒤체기 유로 뒤체기 차 뒤체기 최 아니 지그레 아니 남규영 아저게 미디 아니 릭바 야포요레스 아니 세리디 단 자기 말해 레다 뒤체기 왕기 아니 넘버 쉐바 세리 요레
Number 7 망고로와 number 7 딱 카두카도 대시 잡고 빼 망고 number 7 봤으나 베타 산제니 단다 셈제 드링 아게 녀와게 셈제네 제네 얘기 딱 람보라 토로 람 파베 주 람디네로 산제 주 람보도 number 7 봤다 상류 망고 여러 와서 어디 제단 갑갑 대시 잡고 되게 망고 여러서
There are so many various forms of intelligences. There really are many kinds of intelligences. From the forms of intelligence of hell beings upwards through the awarenesses and intelligence of Arya beings and onward up to the awarenesses and intelligences of Buddha's Sangegi, Gyugi, number a state of awareness in the minds of Buddhas. There are many forms that intelligence or awareness takes.
Oh, yeah, that indeed you do number. Huh? But not Pagbe Yugi number 7 Lamna. That led the Junjet to be said to okay, your mares. Pagbe Antoni was to talk Sarvegi. That was the Kansa Pagwas Labora. I didn't Pagwani Yachene, and the leg number member that Jawamang with your mares. Your mares. But deep mandapilla, leg number member that Jawas and Shep were presuming we are resons.
So there's always a context for the meaning of intelligence or awareness. For instance, for an Arya who has perceived emptiness, after this event, there isn't in the Arya individual's awarenesses, intelligences, very much that anything at all that is conditioned karmically. So in this context, regarding awarenesses, there isn't much to speak of in terms of karmically conditioned awarenesses, and similarly too in awarenesses of the Pata, there are no fully ripened karmic results resulting in these awarenesses.
Only Muslim to have jealous. Yawa Julianki le Kosagi Marwa, Medusamba, the Chiran Tuatan, she chag mares. That only Muslim to Matoni, Dinima, Cheni, and it Kota, Koala, Kawalian, we don't know the leg, George, shape with your response.
So then, for the individual who has perceived emptiness and afterwards karma's conditioning, reincarnation, in cyclic birth are no longer present, Therefore, here it doesn't follow from your observation so much. However, for those before this point, those who compulsively reacquire aggregates and are born into samsara by the force of collected karmas, here those play a determining role in states of awareness.
le sanye ge thodi ane rigba sanye kyawa sanye ane dige chasan dewa yore somas.
But for those before the point of perceiving emptiness, those beneath this threshold state who are compulsively born again into samsara by the force of the quality of their karmas, they have qualitatively different states of experience and of awarenesses.
Oh yeah, jadi mar ani suzuku ta 직 거기에 쌤기 뭐 딜라 바자 가서 상아 야가 샤요이나 세치마디 깨와 상아 아니 오모 타와 아니 거기에 리버세라 아니 가다 개월 망고 되기도 보라 세대기 레사죠다 저 친구 차들 세딜레 레 녀바사이나 뭐 녀송 기야다 오모 마세와다 그 밀레 깨나야 오모 마상와 오모 마세와 아니 되기로 왔어 아니 레 상고사이나 밀레 깨고 마디 아니 오모 세와 오모 타와 오모 차와 이게 강가 되게 저 요래서
There is correlation, there is a strong connection between the karmas accumulated in the present life, their quality, and their consequence in subsequent rebirths and the state of one's faculties in that rebirth by the determining influence of accumulated karmas accumulated in this life. One might be born into a hell realm where one's faculties are poor, states of awareness are confused, or by the force of one's karmas in the present life, one may be born again a human being, but by the quality of those karmas accumulated, a human being, but with incomplete faculties, or with confusion in states of awareness. These follow from the quality of the birth taken and the quality of states of awareness and the faculties that inform those states of awareness. These range depending on the quality of the karmas accumulated. Alla detindi karokado detindi ganjis ani nimbes. Alla de ganjis re.
Ditsan karikadula.
Alla gatsi alla.
Kari de joy yoshi call nimbes.
Alla. You mentioned listening to Song Rinpoche's teaching. What was it? What was the topic, the particular topic, or the involved in what investigation of yours? Involved in what sort of topic of investigation of yours did you listen?
It was the writing your being teaching.
아니, 돌직까지 말을. 돌직까지
나다 저어이고 최년 바로 왔어. 그래서 나다 저어이고 최년 바이나 기름다 조림스. 어디나 조그래서.
So you were listening in the context of the secret mantrayana, and there where all important are generation stage and completion stage practices.
야, 기름 가도 있나? 조림 가도 있나? 내데 저시라 시험보다 기름 가도라 기름 냠슬레 가도라 다야 거기 와서 다다 규마 제시해야 되게 차상 삼을 땅고 열와 그래서 남시에 달래데 저 유백이 되는 냠버에 손을
So in the secret mantrayana of generation stage practices and completion stage practices, in the completion stage, there's no determinate. There's no influence of karmas in the completion stage. However, in the generation stage, as it is an ordinary stage, their consideration of karmas as determining states of awareness is relevant. So it would be in that context that you must have been listening.
Oh yeah, 맞아. 간다데 기름 나시에도 이 구순 남지 시에고로 구순 남지 시도 아니 나랑도 계시 파트 숨여로 깨와 시워 파트 숨 정자 정제 정시 숨여로 정시디 계시 파트 숨 정제 기름도 조름 정제되라 아니 구순 남자되로 어쨌든 때 디시도 좀바다 남시에 저 요부터 시기를 해서 놓지
아니 정차 정치당 정제디 바로 들어봐.
아
정제디
저 저부터는 구순 주고 구순데 간다다 저와 주고 파도 롱고 깨와 주고 다야데 계시 파도 장순 장제 그거
계시
거리 정글스는 기름도 조름 얘기 잠깐
예, 다 이거
정제 구순
정제 구좀 되네.
정자 아니 계시 파도 숨
계시 바로 숨라
깨와 주고
라
파도 롱고 아니 가라
아니 계시 나라 직선 어제 in the generation stage practices, one takes the three Buddha bodies into the path, and there the three Buddha bodies are the supreme Nirmanakaya of birth existence, the Sambhogakaya of the intermediate state, and the Dharmakaya of the death state. And this framework is of the basis of training, the training itself, and the result of the training. The result of the training is the accomplishment of the three Patavadis, the supreme Nirmanakaya, the Sambhogakaya, and the Dharmakaya. The means for the training itself, or the means for achieving this, are generation stage practices and completion stage practices. And the basis for the trainings are these three states of birth state, intermediate state, and death state.
Yeah, I need to somebody
So then we can conclude there. If there are no more questions, we'll recite our closing prayers.
Yeah, so you do this.
He's interested to if Bishila would please speak a little more about the analogy of the honey on the sharp blade.
다들 스제드기 아니 칼리치 취소스 아니 장시디 치를 아니 도도식 자르네 아니 첼레기 다네 다베기 빼치 순수아 아니 빼디기 된다 양게 자식 난다
롤 차는 빼디가 미디 샘지 제를 다니디 가르를 차 장들이 차 로자 장들들 샘 차네 아고 장들들 내 치들 다 장들들 치노부터 레디디 칼 주샤 다 장들들 로디 라야 치다 아니 레디들 제를 다샤로 다샤도 아니 레디들 랑 치를 뚜꾸로 세단다 롤 때네 차야 롤 때네 라운 되게 로 되고 요데 동해질래로 동해데 레디 다 세단다 디나신 빼디 가르나 뉴무다 이것도 셈나는 뉴무도 요로 뉴무도 그 동해도 마다와체 아니 그 밖에 랑 되었다는 데 대외이나 아니 다 대야 되어버와 대화를 차는 대화 되기 어때 이내 랑 동행 양보 다들 랑 젤리디 보라 또 그러와 그래서 동행 양보 빼자고 유몰라 프로체나 아니 대화 토야면 동행 이봐 이내 그 대화 수수 대화 되기 어때 이내 대화 말이 동행을 어디 빼자는 시에서
The desire and craving for the flavor of honey causes one to lick a blade, a sword blade smeared in honey. One is attached, one has grown attached to the flavor and wanting the pleasure of satisfying the desire for the taste of honey. One doesn't give any consideration to where it's smeared, and it's smeared on the blade of a sword. And if one licks a sword blade smeared in honey, one will cut one's tongue. And so afflicted minds, we see them, we grow desirous and attached, and we consider pleasures and satisfactions and grow attached to them and fail to recognize the pain that will ensue. Our wishes for satisfaction were attached to getting more of satisfaction, but fail to be aware that this drive for, this desire for what satisfies us is dangerous in this way.
뒤로 빼제나네 빼기돼요. 리다 달라 차네. 아니 뭐백 다점네. 아니 하마와스. 근데 뭐바도 리다제니 뭐바 여러. 뭐바도 저거니 리다 sem 추주는 그 라니 부들 개점 강데 리다도 달 차데. 아니 그 달 차비 괜찮네. 나그 뭐백 틀파 러셔고다. 근데 뭐백 다점 세기로. 그래서 거기 차야도 잘 차. 아니 그 대화지 째기 열때 간다 고슈를 동행 내기 열어. 어디나시 빼디나시 간다 장지디 인기 빼디 더위 열어서.
And another metaphor is of the deer attached to the deer in the forest, ravished away by a beautiful sound. And so alert to the sound, one sound that they enjoy listening to, that the another sound, the sound of the approaching hunter, they remain unaware of, so that in their enthrallment in a particular sound that they enjoy, the threat, the sound that indicates the threat of approaching hunters is overlooked. And then the hunters draw near and then shoot the deer, and the deer then dies because it was so enthralled by the one sound that it wasn't aware of the other. And then this metaphor of honey smeared on the blade of a sword is similar.
Yeah.
Then we'll conclude here and recite the closing prayers.
이만 통신의 이제 이제 통신 코스. 이만 통신다.
So the days are getting shorter, so we have to make the classes a bit shorter. Page 14. Right. Page 12.
베네른도 벨레 소니제 카더 양보 카시 사바데 루메 마레제 돈도와이 난데 제웨 원고 마주지 데마스메 제로 군데야 잠베 양제 제웨 제소네 템베링바 구산 남제쇼 예네 루베 제나지 라게 지신 도베 라지네 슈라 제웨 자웨 타게기 로웨 이게 무바스제네 Gewe tenpo yure zengyuji. Tenpo rinjin choge majabang. Chabjan nyambara gyurwe chodene. Ninje chimbu yera gyobayi. Pende teje sewara chebarishon. Seje jawe mejun chilele. Leru janju lamje rimbe kyang. Tadu namgi yila pederji. Jawe zeba rindu jonjuji. Lazan rube tunjin dojeji. Gegen seje medam memegun. Sera kundu jawe mabayi. Namda landa jawa magiruji. Kanze tiba jola jujuji. Tujin rola zumba deyeji. Tuden namje tadu rojeji. Raji gyazo chogun gyagruji.
From my two collections, vast is space that I have amassed, from working with effort at this practice for a great length of time, may I become the chief Bodhisattva for all those whose mind's wisdom eye is blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all my lives, Manjushri. May I find the best of the paths of the complete teachings, and may I please all the Buddhas by practicing. Using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings with the point of the path as I have discerned them. May I uphold Buddha's teachings for a very long time. With my heart going out with great compassion, in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread or once spread have declined, may I offer this treasure of happiness to aid all sentient beings. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted bounteous peace, and the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time by following the complete graduated path to enlightenment and the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their sons. May all human and non-human beings that eliminate adversity and make things conducive for practicing the excellent paths never be parted in any of their lives from the purest path praised by the Buddhas. Whenever someone makes effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtuous practices, may he always be assisted by the mighty ones, and may oceans of prosperity spread everywhere.
Dāki chīnyē sābē gyāvā dī, tēndān rāvā kūnā gāmpēntā, chēvārā chēsēn lōsān rābā yī, tēmbē nīmbō rīndē sēkīshā, vārē rāvē gōvē shīngāndē, tēndān dēvā māyū chūpēnē, chērē sēvān tēnzēn gyātsā yī, Shabe sidi bardu tengyuruji. Chambe bawo jindar kembada. Kundu zambu deyan dejinde. Deda gungi jesu dalo jir. Dewa deda tamje rabdu mo. Tuzun jebe dewa tamje. Mowa kanla chodu ngabade. Tagi gewe tawa digu gyam. Sambo chuje radu mawaregi. Chanjo semjo rinpoche. Mage bana ge girji. Dewa nyamba bebayam. Pone gondo bewarajo. I dedicate whatever virtues I've ever collected for the benefit of the teachings and of sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drop to shine forever. In the land encircled by snowy mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Shinra-Titins and Gyatso, please remain until cyclic existence is ended. Just as the brave Manjushri and Samantavajra do, realize things as they are. Also, I dedicate all these merits in the best way, that I may follow their perfect example. I dedicate all these roots of virtue, with the dedication praised as the best, by the victorious thus gone ones of the three times, so that I might perform the noble Bodhisattva's deeds. May the supreme jewel of Bodhisattva that has not arisen, arising grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. Thank you, everybody.